surveys and Coast Guard inspections.
So things were omitted. Now, when's the last time that you're aware that one of these alternative compliance folks told a company they had to take a ship out of service and make very significant repairs or just retire it, as they did El Yunque once you looked at it?
I'm aware of others that have been in similar condition that have had to come out of service, but I'd say probably it's not frequent. It's not frequent.
Right. I mean, it's a competitive industry, right? And so I hire you. I'm hiring you to certify my rust bucket. I'd rather not hear about it, or you tell me about it, and then I'm probably not going to hire you again, right? I mean, if they aren't being adequately overseen. What's the liability of the classification people in this case? Is there potential liability for them? Are they being sued because they overlooked things?
That's a little bit outside my area of expertise regarding the liability. I can reassure you that certainly we recognize the importance of proper oversight over all classification societies, all third parties that we entrust to do our work to help us. And we are committed again to trying to rectify that.
Do you feel there's any conflict in your mission here where you're both to facilitate and promote seaborne commerce, and at the same time you're supposed to protect the life and safety of the mariners? Many years ago, I offered an amendment in this committee where the FAA had that dual mandate, and I asked, is that a problem? And they said no. Then we had a tragic, totally preventable airplane crash, and after that came out, somehow my amendment got into the bill without having been passed on either side of the hill, because people realized that this was a horrible problem for the FAA to be both promoting an industry which is very mature and didn't need promotion and regulating safety, and I substantially took away the promotional aspects. Should we be moving the promotional aspects or mandate over to commerce? It seems a more logical place than Coast Guard.
I don't know that I find my role as promotion. I think that we balance, we try and be practical and apply common sense when we apply the standards that are either developed by Congress or that industries ask for. I think we rely more on the safety side of things, and we try and ensure that there's a level playing field out there, that we equally apply the regulations. And I would offer also, sir, that we're not the only flag in the world, the only country in the world that relies on third parties. Virtually every flag state out there today relies on these classification societies in some way, shape, or form. It's just the way the system has evolved. But we need proper oversight in order to ensure that all parties are doing what they're responsible for doing.
Yeah, I mean, and what would constitute proper oversight? I mean, in this case, let's just say had the Coast Guard had adequate staff, El Faro was surveyed, deficiencies were not noted, and if you had followed on with a comprehensive inspection and found deficiencies that weren't noted, what would be the consequences for that classification society?
Well, first off, we would have made sure that the ship is in proper condition and does not have the problems that were found. Secondly, would be to have a scheme in place to make sure that we do hold those class societies accountable. So it starts at the basic level, getting on board the ship to observe the standards on board the ship to see if they're meeting the minimum standards. Secondly, it's digging into the safety management system aboard the ship and aboard that company that they have to make sure that they have the proper systems in place to maintain the ship. And then thirdly, it's looking at the quality system in place by those third parties to make sure that they have the proper training, the proper procedures in place to make sure they capture and resolve these things when they find them.
Is there any way to assess a penalty against a classification society that does an inadequate survey that endangers life and safety, or to suspend their capability to do alternate compliance?
I don't know that we would pursue the penalty. I think probably the larger ramifications would be either preventing them from doing that work on our behalf. They all have a reputation they're trying to uphold. It is a competitive business, and they're generally pretty responsive when we ask them to be. We need to make sure that we're on them, holding them accountable, and ensuring they take the proper response.
I mean, it just all reminds me a little bit of, you know, the junk bonds on Wall Street that caused the worst economic collapse since the Great Depression, where all of these bonds were given very high ratings because it was well known if you didn't give this junk high ratings, they wouldn't hire you to give the junk high ratings, and you lose business. I don't see how it's any different here.
Sir, I'd say here the difference is we know how to do this work. I've asked myself over and over again, how did this happen? We learned this lesson, yes, with the Marine Electric. Since then, we have doubled down time and time again, investing more and more in third parties, whether it's through Congress, certainly industry asking us to push more and more to the third parties. And we've gone through changes in the Coast Guard, where we stood up sectors. We used to have marine safety offices working for District M captains. Now we have sectors which are very powerful, allow us to do things we could never do before, like we saw this summer in response to the hurricanes. But along the way, I think we've lost a little bit of our focus, and we're doubling down now to get that back.
And you've got adequate resources to do that?
As always, you could do more if you had more, but this is not strictly a capacity problem. There are elements to training. If you just gave me another 1,000 Marine inspectors, it wouldn't solve this problem. This problem involves training. This problem involves getting the right information. This problem involves getting the right policy and procedures in place. Entry-level Marine inspections is not what I'm talking about. I need to have a small core, it's not a lot, a small core of people that can get out and are highly trained and proficient and stay focused on this area until we get it right.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank the ranking member. Does anybody else have any questions for this panel? Any of my Republican colleagues? I'll take that as a no. Hey, thank you very much for being here and talking with us on this. And with that, we will move on to the next panel.
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
before we move on, we have a series of questions that we'd like to submit for the record. Many of these have already been discussed here. Let me just review very quickly and make sure that we cover what we want to cover. I want to specifically ask Admiral Nadeau, the recommendations from the NTSB, numerous as they are, I'm just going through them. I think there's about 20 or 30 of them. Have you responded to those recommendations? Those that are, almost all of them are specific to the Coast Guard.
Thank you for that question. We look forward to getting the entire